The mast groaned as if it might split, but Tomas pulled harder. Rain struck his face. The sea had turned black beneath the storm, and every wave lifted his boat high enough to show him the harbor lights before dropping them behind a wall of water. His sails snapped wildly above him. Any sensible sailor would have loosened the rope and let the canvas spill the wind. Tomas wrapped the rope around his forearm and leaned back with all his weight. The wind wanted the sail open. He wanted it closed. One of them would have to surrender. A gust tore across the deck. The boat tilted until the rail entered the water. Barrels rolled. The lantern vanished, and Tomas felt the rope burn through his palms. Still, he refused to release it. Then the mast struck the sea, and the boat capsized beneath him. By dawn, fishermen found Tomas clinging to the overturned hull. It was the third time that year. Tomas was young, strong, and admired for sailing farther than anyone else in the village. He could tie every knot, read every current, and repair a torn sail before most men had threaded a needle. Yet skill was not enough for him. He wanted mastery. He wanted the sea to recognize his commands. Before every voyage, he planned the exact hour he would leave, the exact course he would follow, and the exact moment he would return. If the wind shifted, he treated it as an insult. If a current carried him east, he rowed west until his shoulders shook. When clouds gathered, he stood at the bow and muttered arguments at them, as though a storm might apologize after hearing his reasons. The villagers began calling him the sailor who fought the wind. Tomas pretended the name pleased him. After each wreck, he blamed weak rope, poor timber, misleading clouds, or waves that had arrived too soon. Then he built the boat again, thicker and heavier than before. He strengthened the mast, doubled the lines, and added iron hooks so no sail could escape his grip. His next boat looked less like something meant to travel with the sea, and more like something built to imprison it. For several weeks, the weather remained calm. Tomas returned each evening with full nets and a proud smile. He believed the iron hooks had solved what humility had not. Then, one afternoon, a gray line formed along the horizon. The other sailors turned home. Tomas continued outward. He had chosen a reef before sunrise, and he would reach it. The rising wind pushed against him. He lowered one sail, tightened another, and forced the rudder toward the route marked in his mind. The harder the wind drove south, the harder he steered north. The timbers began to shudder. His new ropes held, but because they held, nothing could yield. The force passed from sail to mast, from mast to hull, and from hull into every rigid joint he had reinforced. With a crack like breaking bone, the mast tore through the deck. Tomas reached shore on a piece of timber. This time, no one helped him rebuild. For many days, he sat near the harbor, watching other boats leave. Some sailed straight toward their destination. Others curved widely, following changes in the breeze. A few returned early. None seemed ashamed. At the far end of the beach lived an old fisherman named Elias. His nets were patched, his oars were uneven, and his smallest boat looked barely large enough for 2 baskets of fish. He never hurried to launch before the others, yet he often returned first. Tomas studied him with suspicion. Elias did not seem stronger, braver, or more disciplined. Sometimes he rested on or across his knees while the current carried him. Sometimes he changed direction without apparent resistance. On certain mornings, he sailed nowhere at all. Tomas finally approached him before dawn and asked to be shown how he controlled the wind. Elias looked toward the horizon. The palms above the village were already bending. He lifted 2 nets, placed them in his smallest boat, and motioned for Tomas to climb aboard. The harbor master warned that the wind would rise by midday. Elias pushed away from shore. The little boat seemed absurdly fragile. Its mast was thin, its sail patched in 5 places, and water seeped slowly between the boards. Tomas searched for extra rope, a second anchor, or some hidden device that might explain the old man's confidence. There was nothing. As they passed the breakwater, the first strong gust filled the sail. Tomas reached for the line. Elias placed one weathered hand over it, not gripping Tomas, only covering the rope. Then he waited. The sail pulled. The boat leaned. Tomas's body tightened in expectation of the struggle. But Elias loosened his fingers by less than an inch. A little wind escaped from the edge of the canvas, and the boat settled. They continued without speaking. The wind strengthened. Elias shifted one basket toward the center. Later, he moved his foot. When a dark patch crossed the water, he lowered the sail halfway before the gust arrived. When the gust passed, he raised it again. Each action was small. Between them, he did almost nothing. Tomas kept watching for the moment when the old fisherman would seize command. That moment never came. Beyond the bay, the waves grew steep. Their destination, a cluster of rocks where fish gathered, lay directly against the wind. Tomas expected Elias to point the bow toward it and row with all his strength. Instead, Elias turned away. The little boat sailed east, leaving the rocks behind. Tomas stared at him, certain the old man had misjudged the course. Elias only watched the sail. After a time, he turned again. The boat crossed the wind at an angle. Then he turned once more. Their path formed a wide zigzag over the sea. It looked wasteful, almost foolish. Yet with every turn, the rocks came nearer. Tomas began to understand with his body before his mind could name anything. They were not traveling where the wind wanted. They were not traveling exactly where Tomas wanted. They were using each direction the wind offered to approach the place they had chosen. Near midday, the sky darkened. A squall descended from the hills, flattening the grass along the cliffs. Boats closer to shore hurried toward the harbor. Tomas felt the old reflex rise in him. His hands closed around the side of the boat. His jaw tightened. Somewhere inside, he was already preparing an argument against the storm. Elias lowered the sail completely. Then he pulled in the nets, tied the baskets low, and let the boat drift. Rain swept over them. The bow swung sideways. For several minutes, they moved farther from the village. Tomas could see the distance increasing, and every part of him demanded correction. Elias sat beside the folded sail and watched the waves. One wave lifted them, another turned them, a third carried them into the shelter of a rocky inlet Tomas had never noticed. There the water remained restless, but no longer dangerous. Elias took a piece of bread from his coat, divided it, and handed half to Tomas. They ate while the squall passed. When the rain softened, Elias raised a corner of the sail. The remaining wind carried them out of the inlet and toward home. He did not reclaim the distance they had lost by fighting through the shortest route. He simply began again from where the storm had left them. They reached the harbor before sunset with both nets full. Elias tied the boat, lifted his baskets, and walked away. He offered no speech about surrender, courage, or wisdom. He did not tell Tomas what the voyage meant. He left the little boat rocking against the pier, its ropes neither slack nor strained. The following morning, Tomas began rebuilding his own boat. He used less timber. He removed the iron hooks and chose ropes he could release quickly. He made the sail smaller and left room for the mast to bend. The villagers watched him test each line, not by pulling until it resisted, but by noticing how easily it could be adjusted. His new boat was not the strongest in the harbor. It was the most responsive. At first, Tomas still fought old battles. When a journey took longer than planned, anger rose in his chest. When the current shifted, his hands tightened. But he began to recognize those moments as he once recognized dark water before a gust. He would loosen one rope. He would change one angle. He would wait long enough to discover what the sea was doing before deciding what he should do next. He still chose destinations. He still prepared carefully. He still worked through fatigue when work was required. The lesson had not made him passive. It had shown him that determination and rigidity were not the same strength. Years passed, and Tomas became known for returning through weather that stranded larger boats. People assumed he had learned to predict every storm. In truth, he had stopped demanding that every storm be predictable. The wind still changed without consulting him. Waves still erased his routes. Some days he caught nothing. Some voyages ended in unfamiliar coves. But he no longer measured his ability by whether the world obeyed his first plan. He measured it by whether he could remain awake enough to make the next useful adjustment. The same struggle appears far from the sea. A woman sits at her office desk with a presentation planned for the morning. A message arrives saying the project has changed. Her first impulse is to defend every completed slide, argue with the timing, and force the meeting back toward yesterday's plan. Then she notices her hands tightening over the keyboard. She removes what no longer fits, keeps what still serves, and asks her team for the one fact they now know. The presentation becomes simpler. The meeting takes a different course, but the work moves forward. That evening, her partner comes home quiet. She begins rehearsing explanations for an argument that has not happened. Then she lets the silence remain. She puts down her phone, makes tea, and sits nearby without trying to steer the mood. Nothing is solved at once. Nothing is forced open. A little later, her partner begins to speak. At home, at work, and in the uncertain spaces between people, control often disguises itself as responsibility. It tells us that if we grip tightly enough, plan perfectly enough, or resist every change, we can prevent discomfort and guarantee the route. But life is not a fixed road beneath obedient feet. It is closer to wind over water. We can prepare the boat, choose a direction, and learn the craft. We cannot command every gust. When the next plan breaks, remember the smallest boat in the rising wind. Remember the old fisherman moving one basket, loosening one line, and waiting inside the rocky inlet. Remember Tomas, who reached his destination only after he stopped insisting on a straight path. Keep this lesson with you and return whenever your mind needs a quieter path.